And you had to be able to walk into that door and in the first 30 seconds, convey to that person, there is a reason I'm here and I have a right to be here. And if you don't understand that way of thinking, sales will kill you. And sales killed me for the first 5 to 10 years.
Wow. 5 to 10 years.
Because I never understood. I had no training in the beginning.
Step into the world of success with Your Brand Amplified, the ultimate podcast designed to unravel the intricacies of thriving businesses. I'm your host, Annika Jackson, and I'm on a mission to uncover the stories, strategies, and secrets that have propelled entrepreneurs and business leaders to success. John Lester, truly our 20-minute conversation, actually almost 25-minute conversation before we jumped onto this interview, could have been a podcast in itself. And I'm so grateful and thankful that we are here today. Sometimes I say I always meet people, they always come on as guests at the perfect time, that inflection point when we really need to be having these conversations. And I do believe that about you being on, you being here with the audience, with myself right now. So thank you.
It's a pleasure to be here. And I think one of the biggest mistakes we make as people is we don't stop to recognize the fact that there's an opportunity stepping into our life. And because we're too busy with our heads down, and we need to stop doing that. Embrace them more.
Yes, truly. Well, you're talking about, that's part of our conversation before, the blind spots. Your company is Attitude Selling, which is a great name. And you had a blind spot because you hated sales. You didn't want to teach sales. And now this is your livelihood.
I still, let's go off of it. I still don't teach sales. It wasn't so much a blind spot as I never realized it. So to me, they're a little bit different. But I mean, I've been relatively successful. How do you define success? Basically, I have no mortgage. I live in a beautiful house. I live in one of the top 10 neighborhoods in the United States. I made a very smart decision. I'm going to really annoy a lot of people when I say this. I made a really smart decision at early ages. I didn't have children, which is why I look so wonderful and young. What can I say? But Attitude Selling, the reason that name exists is because what I realized in sales is that such a high percentage of being successful in the area of sales, whether you are a salesperson or not, because my focus is really on the small business, and we can talk about that in a little bit. But one of the biggest hurdles to overcome and one of the biggest advantages you can have is understanding and crafting your own attitude. And if once you understand that, probably 50 to 60% of the friction that anybody has with sales goes away. It's just kind of fascinating.
I am a testament to that. There have been, I've built out courses and then not felt confident enough to launch them, and then found out later that there are a lot of people who want them and are vying for them if I'd only put the material out. I've had many of those times when I've held myself back. And now I was telling you, and my listeners have heard, right? September 1st, I said, I'm not going to work for anybody else full-time. Again, I'm fully going into podcasting. I need to take this chance on myself. I don't need a business partner. I've done those thinking that I needed somebody else as my crutch. But this is based on what I've been able to build with a great team, of course. Yeah. But now I feel comfortable and confident to launch all of these things all these ideas that still are in this ecosystem of AI, teaching, and podcasting. So they're highly relevant to each other, and they help different people depending on where they are in the cycle of deciding to start a podcast, not start a podcast, right? Engage in different ways in this ecosystem. But I didn't have that confidence before, and it's already been the revenue that I've made in the month of September by taking that chance and leap has been amazing. Far more than I was making at a full-time job. And I live outside the outskirts of Los Angeles. You have to make $100,000, $120,000 a year just to survive in this city.
Easily. Oh yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, come out east where that doesn't get you halfway because the property taxes out here are ridiculous.
Yeah.
Yeah, but go back to what you just said. This is a really interesting. We'll take a quick diversion into this. There's this old saying that if you fake it till you make it is one. There's a Lao Tzu saying about in the mind of the warrior wins before he goes into battle. And what you just said about confidence, a large part of confidence is first adapting the attitude.
Mhm.
And the attitude, there's a few aspects of this, but the attitude in your case is, hey, I'm worth it. I deserve it. I will succeed. That's not confidence. That's taking the attitude first. It's that attitude. And one of the things I found so fascinating about sales, because being successful in large corporations, you get to see a lot of different aspects. And then I went into the SMB side. But how do you start? How do you begin? When you walk into a sales situation, are you projecting, hey, I don't really want to be here? Are you projecting, oh, I don't like this customer? Are you projecting, hey, no, I have a reason to be here. I add value. When you're starting in sales and you're now asked to go call on a top level, C-level person in a major corporation, I grew up and sold in New York City. It's a fun place to sell. The attitudes down there are just ridiculous.
Right.
And we had primarily finance, retail banking, where banking is finance, insurance. You guys had media, right? So your buyer, to a large extent, the Los Angeles market has always been a media buyer up until recently. We always had the harder people.
Mhm.
The guy's going to negotiate a heck of a lot more if he's running an investment fund. And you had to be able to walk into that door and in the first 30 seconds, convey to that person, there is a reason I'm here and I have a right to be here. And if you don't understand that way of thinking, sales will kill you. And sales killed me for the first 5 to 10 years.
Wow. 5 to 10 years.
Because I never understood. I had no training in the beginning.
But you stuck with it. So talk about that, and then what was the shift in your attitude? And did you have mentors? Did you have to figure this out? Did you read a lot of books? Like, what created that transition for you?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. I mean, I started as a bench technician in electronics, and I moved into fixing computers. I get fascinated with technology, and then I was fixing computers. Now, and I'll say this out loud, and people can do what they want. I had no idea what I was doing. I never did. I just because I didn't have the patience to track circuits the way you had to back then. If something seemed logical, I go, here's the solution. I was wrong a lot of times. I was right a lot of times. It doesn't matter. I mean, I went in and I was responsible at one point for every piece of equipment in a hospital with the exception of pneumatics and x-rays. And I would get calls and said, hey, so the spectrometer is broken. Come in and fix it. I didn't even know what a spectrometer was. Had to have the attitude, have the perspective. And I used to go up into the country, into the Catskills every weekend to go play with my friends. A lot of alcohol involved, but we're not going to talk about that. But I was on call and I couldn't leave at 3 o'clock on a Saturday morning when I'm completely inebriated on the floor. And I'm telling you folks more than I should be. So I cut a deal with all my customers because I always provided exceptional service. I said, guys, look, I said, let's make a deal. If you have a real emergency, I mean, serious emergency, call me. I said, if you'd be so kind, could you not call me between 2 o'clock on a Friday afternoon and first thing Monday morning? Leave me a message and I will show up. I don't care if I have to show up, 5, 6 o'clock Monday morning, but if I can have my weekends, I'd greatly appreciate it. And you'll get even better service. In 2 years, I got one call. People respect that because I brought in the right attitude.
Yep.
All right. So the company I was working for, long story short, we were distributing a Canadian product, and the Canadian parent, who was also funding the operation in the United States, said, no, we don't want to fund you guys anymore. So you're off on your own. You can become an independent distributor. From a monetary perspective, if things go right, that was a great deal. But there was no cash flow at the time, right? Because we weren't selling that much. And this was a very, very specialized computer at the time. It was a computer that was being sold primarily to actuaries and life insurance companies. Talk about exciting conversations. I love these guys. I absolutely love them. No offense to actuaries out there, guys. So my boss who owned the company came in and he said, I've got decisions to make for you. I said, well, what is it? He said, look, I don't need anybody to repair these machines if we're not selling them. That makes sense. He goes, so either you can sell them or you can leave. I said, yeah, strong letter to follow, I'm sure. So the thing was, I understood the market. I understood my customers. I understood what the product was supposed to do. And I had the worst experience of my life. I was successful immediately.
Oh no.
It is actually, and I mean, I'm not saying this tongue in cheek, folks. I'm saying this very sincerely because you don't know what you don't know.
Mm-hmm.
So you can't remedy what you don't know. And if you become successful early on, you don't take the time and spend the energy to be truly successful. So that was a trap. So I worked there for a while, continued on some other companies, never really understood what sales was. And I finally said, this doesn't make any sense. I had no mentors. Nobody was telling me. And I actually took a Dale Carnegie course. The thing that the Dale Carnegie course taught me, because I'm not saying, I'm not endorsing them, by the way, by mentioning them. I'm just saying at the time, that's what was available to me. What I understood was that there is actually a structure to selling. I never even knew that. That's pretty basic. And as I understood it and as I started to read, because I read a lot, and as I started to study, and then I had a few salespeople that I became friends with, and my best friend at the time was arguably one of the top 10 salespeople I ever met in my life. And he was good enough to talk to me. And I started to understand it, and I started to see where his attitude, and I mean this sincerely, he was able to get to more C-level people in the shortest period of time and get agreement on going forward than anybody else I've ever met in my life. Now, once he got the agreement to go downstream and sell, his process blew up. That was his blind spot. But what he taught me and helped me understand was that how important attitude was.
Mm-hmm.
The industry of IT in the 70s, 80s, 90s, up probably to 2000s in New York was primarily Italian. This is not a knock or a racial profile. It's just that was the way it was. Okay. He was very Italian. He walked into a room of one of the top investment firms in the United States. There's another fellow in there who was probably Jewish. And I know this is totally politically incorrect, so I'm just warning people to cover your ears if you don't like this kind of stuff. He looked around the room. He looked at the Jewish gentleman and said, how does it feel to be the only white person in the room? Because that attitude, that he could pull that off, that he could carry that off, completely took the room by surprise, completely relaxed everybody, and allowed him to do what it was that he was there to do. That is very powerful to be able to act that way.
Wow. Yeah.
And if you look at it, Tony Robbins does similar things. Tony Robbins believes in changing your state. That's his entire premise. That's all that this gentleman did. So attitude to me is the primary requirement to be successful. Now, here's the problem. Come COVID, so many businesses went out of business.
Right.
So many salespeople, and I consider salespeople to be my tribe, salespeople were thrown out of a job.
Yeah.
It's unfortunately the vast majority of people, and this again is not a knock, but in my opinion, the vast majority of people want to get up in the morning. They want to have a cup of coffee, hug the kids, hug the wife, however you want to spin that. Doesn't really matter to me. Go off, do a relatively good job, enjoy their work to some extent. If you enjoy 3 out of 5 days, you're doing well, I think, in most companies. Come home, stop off, have a beer, maybe go coach a kid's sports team, hug the kids, go to bed, get up and do it again. There's nothing wrong with that. COVID came and people were dropped like flies. And it wasn't because they were doing something wrong. It's because the business owners did not know how to pivot, did not know how to shift. The reason was because they did not truly understand and are able to express the value that they brought to the market. The ones that understood the value actually pivoted. Now, some of them couldn't help it. If you were in the cruise industry, you were dead regardless. And there was no way that they could do what they had to do. But you'll see stories of restaurants and businesses and service businesses and manufacturers who understood what their real value was to the market and understood how to deliver that value, and their people were relatively safe. And I said, this doesn't make any sense. Because it's not that hard, from my perspective.
From your perspective.
Yeah. Well, as I said,
yeah,
I have other blind spots, trust me. But from their perspective. So I realized that my job in life has got to be to help them understand how to create an aligned, predictable, sustainable sales process. That is not sales training.
Mm-hmm.
And I was actually looking through some of your guests and what they're talking about in your podcasts. And what I find, not only in yours, but in most people's, just about everybody's things that I look at, is everybody talks about sales and selling from the perspective of what do you have to do to the buyer?
Mm.
What do you have to do to the buyer?
Yeah.
My perspective is no, what do you have to do to yourself? And if I can change that perspective in you, you're going to have a completely different relationship with your buyer.
100%. 100%. Right before we jumped on, and I talked about how a lot of people that I have on my podcast, we form great relationships. You're not just a guest, right? You're now a friend. You're somebody we can have really rich conversations with. Not doesn't happen every time. But when it does happen, it's amazing and beautiful. And I have companies that are now I'm their podcast producer for any of their clients. A lot of big opportunities came out of that. And it wasn't because I was selling to them. It was because we formed a relationship and I did change my viewpoint of, like we talked about, fun. I have so much fun and I wake up every day so excited about what I get to do, what I'm allowed to do in this, lifetime, and the people I get to have conversations with and what I get to learn from my guests right along with my audience. And I think that's what shows through. So it makes it easy. And also, of course, using my podcast and my experience as a case study for people who want to have one, it makes it easy for people to say, oh, yes, I trust her not just because I was a guest on a podcast that does really well, but because I can see she's genuinely interested. And I have built that spark inside of me to selling is effortless. Where before I would have said, oh, selling, I don't like that. It feels like a dirty word. It feels hard because I'm trying to convince somebody. And now it's, want to work with me? Fantastic. Don't want to? I have other people I can introduce you to, or I can give you solutions to do it yourself. As long as you're successful.
Yeah, I'll drop two nuggets for your audience, and I learned these a long time ago, and they've done so much for me. The biggest one is, don't ever be afraid to fire a customer.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't just work where they fire you. You have to fire customers. All right. Don't ever let a customer be so important that you worry about losing them.
I wish I'd learned that much earlier. So,
Oh yeah. No, I've had clients and people to talk to that didn't become clients. And I said, well, tell me about your biggest customer, blah, 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 blah. I said, what percentage of your revenue is derived from that customer? 35%. I said, you're in trouble. I don't know if I can take you. Okay. Because you can't make rational, logical decisions.
no,
But you have to have the attitude. You have to have the mindset to say, I can't let that. And I'm not throttling back the customer. I just have to work harder to get more. 35%, you will get crucified. Because you have to expect to lose 15% of your customers a year. 15% is on number of customers, not on revenue. So that one customer is, you can't afford to lose them.
Yeah.
But it's all attitude.
So talk about that. And what did you do next in your career? How did you take this forward into your life, into your world of work? And what blind spots did you encounter along the way or realize through those aha moments along the way?
So I woke up one morning. I think I woke up. I'm still not even sure. And I could not physically move.
Ooh.
It was like somebody had put stakes in every limb in my body into the bed. And I really did it. That was one of those moments. And you have a few of those during your life. And just, you get a bad case of the flu, or you get a bad case of COVID. And you really, at some level, wish that you were dead. And I know you don't really do it, but that's how badly you feel. So we use that as an expression, how badly we feel. And I couldn't move. And I said to my wife, look, I don't know what's going on. I mean, I couldn't even get up to go to the bathroom without taking 20 minutes to do it. Mm. And so she said, well, come on, we'll get you over to the doctor. So we ran up to my doctor, who's really good. And he's looking me over and he's like, I don't have a clue what's wrong with you. He said, let's do some blood tests. And we ran a blood test, and I forget what the factors were, but there were 5 or 6 factors that were off the norms, but they were off 100 times. The numbers were just ridiculously off the charts. And I still have the blood test somewhere because I think about this. He couldn't figure out what it was. And I wound up going back to him every day, and we pulled blood every single day. And what we saw was that the numbers continued to be out of range, but they moved through the body. No idea. He said, look, I'll give you, well, I don't know what to do with you. He said, I'll give you an antibiotic because we'll see if that works or not. Gave me a shot of antibiotics and put me on pills. I went home and I just couldn't move for like a week.
Oh my gosh.
It's the end of the quarter. I'm working for an organization. And the sales managers, I'm calling up going, dude, I can't. I mean, if either I'm going to check into an ICU sooner, but I can't do anything. And he's beating me up. Well, I need this deal closed. Well, how are we going to get this deal closed? What are we going to do? Jonathan, I like to do a good job. I have one of these needs for approval, which was a blind spot. And I said, look, I'm trying. I couldn't even pick up the phone. And then after about the third or fourth day, I got to this point and I said, I can't live like this. I mean, it's not sustainable. It's going to destroy me. And it's going to destroy the marriage. And I'm not doing that. All right. So I've got to refocus what I'm doing. And my focus had always been, I love presenting technology as a problem solver. It was just at that time, this is quite a while ago, I just love saying, hey, how can we solve the problem? And how can we make everybody's life better with technology? And they said, well, I can't do that because I'm married to the technology, which means I'm married to where I'm working.
Oh, yeah.
I said, so what do I really like to do? And I said, what I really like to do is I love the look on people's faces when they realize that I helped them solve a problem. It's not about closing the deal, which is weird for a salesperson. But I knew that would come if I could get that look. So my entire objective from then and still to this day is to get that look. My numbers, when I said that and I said, look, I'm going to not sell based on what my company needs, which is still how people sell. Oh, I need this number by the end of the quarter. Oh, I need this deal by this month. I said, I'm not going to do it. I refuse to work for anybody that does that. I said, I will work under the customer's timeline. Numbers over doubled.
Wow.
Started closing deals in the 7 figures. Major companies. And basically did that for the next 25 years or so. Until COVID. COVID, threw a wrench in things. And had fun. My customers had fun. I'm not even going to tell you the size of the barbells I drove up with these guys. But what I got out of it was this tremendous loyalty and this tremendous trust because they knew that I was only going to do the right thing for them. Why? Because my attitude was, I love my customer. And if I couldn't love my customer, and this is the main message to this right now, if I couldn't love my customer, they couldn't be my customer.
Mm-hmm.
So if they weren't in sync with my values, or if we couldn't come to a reconciliation as to what they couldn't be my customer.
Yeah.
That's all
part of what I'm hearing also is going from going around numbers and goals for the quarter and kind of fear-based selling versus what you're talking about, which is joy, bringing joy, solving solutions, showing how you're solving them, which is really where we all should be.
Yeah. Well, but we're not taught that. And that's not the culture. And that if you look at selling going back into the probably post-World War II selling, because prior to that was a little bit different, but post-World War II selling, that's what it's turned into. And especially technology, because technology, up until recently, was, and I mean this sincerely, technology was a methodology, selling technology was a methodology where you invented acronyms to confuse the customer. And I'm not kidding, by the way.
I know you're not. I know you're not.
And it was all about withholding information and positioning yourself to appear as if you knew more than the prospect knew. And that's why selling is in such a turmoil today, is because today the prospect knows more than you do.
Yeah. We have so much access to information, to research, to reviews from other people, subreddits, Quoras, all kinds of different ways of going down rabbit holes of information about brands, about services.
And so the biggest mistake I'm finding, and this is a large part of what I do in my practice, is if I asked you, what do you do? Your answer is going to be something along the lines of I'm a teacher, or I'm a podcaster, or I'm a specialist, or something like that.
I can, I can granulate that for you though.
No, it's an example. The vast majority of people fall in the same category. All right. So the problem is that the customer or the buyer is not buying what you do. They're buying the value that they bring. And we don't teach people to think about value. Now, here's the worst part of it. Let's not even talk about salespeople. Let's talk about small business owners.
Yeah.
Most small business owners have a skill or a dream that they believe has value and they want to share it with the world. Nowadays, a lot of the small business people are being thrown out of corporate America. I mean, I think the number is something like 750,000 white collar jobs reduced
Mhm.
in 2.5 years, something like that. The number itself isn't important. Nobody's ever taught them what sales is about. Nobody's ever taught them about the philosophy of sales. And you don't get it out of a book. You got to read a lot of books to get that kind of stuff. So they go in and they're all excited and they say, hey, Mr. Buyer, I have this wonderful thing. And here's what the wonderful thing does. And the buyer's sitting there subconsciously going, wait a minute, that's not my issue. That's not my problem. Please ask me what my problem is. 45 minutes later, they go, oh, I got to leave.
Yeah.
And the seller comes out going, I don't understand. How did they not like it?
Well, and what I'll say is, teacher podcaster, that is stuff I do, right? But that's not why I do it. And I think that's what's important. No matter what I've done, whether it was as a club promoter, as a teacher, as a publicist, as a marketer, as a brand, whatever role I've had, it's always been about creating community and helping people really be able to see who they are and put it out to the world so they can make a difference. I want to help people along that journey to be the change makers, the difference makers, and
Right.
to also have that, I would say confidence, but to feel that they can fully express who they are with their values, their constructs. That's why if I'm talking about personal branding, anything else, I always go back to what is your brand? What are your purpose of your life, mission, vision, values? How do you make sure that you're staying true to your core? Because that's the only way that you are putting your light into the world and affecting change for others.
Right. But I want to take it now,
Yep.
move that a little bit. What is the buyer really looking for? First of all, most buyers don't truly understand the problem that they're trying to solve. They really don't. They look at the obvious one, and this is why so many conversations revert instantly to price. Because we as a society, and again, I can only speak to my experience in the United States. Selling in other countries could be very, very different. I just don't know. So I'm not even going to go there. But the American buyer, when you don't know what it is that you're trying to accomplish and you don't have a facility or a process to gauge that, what you do understand is dollars and cents. So you rate everything based on price and you negotiate based on price, even though you might not be solving the problem. What buyers really want to a large extent and need, and this is large corporate buyers as well as individuals and SMBs, is they need somebody to assure them that what they as sellers are going to be doing is going to help the buyer solve the problem that they're trying to solve. Inherent in that, because the buyer doesn't even understand this, is to help them identify the problem. That's a lot for a salesperson.
Yeah.
It's even more for a business owner. And so my job is to help the business owners understand the minimally viable product, if you will, of them to become a facilitator or a seller. It's not simple, guys. So if you listen to this thinking, oh, selling is not simple. It's the hardest profession because it's the most mental profession.
Yeah. 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 And I think business owners also, they think they've created something for a specific avatar or ideal customer profile. And they may be way off on, right, who actually wants their solution. And I've worked with people, I remember right slightly after the pandemic, there was a doctor and nurse team husband, wife also, who created a product based on a need they saw for when they would take their young children to public restrooms. And, yeah. So they created this product and they named it very specifically for this one thing. And I said, no, no, no. This product is good for so many other use cases where you don't want to touch something, but you want to sanitize it. Think about people who are, I mean, it's biodegradable and it has all these other great qualities, but airplanes,
Mm.
school, right? College students, Airbnbs, hotels, adventure travel, camping, so many other situations where I could see a better use case because I don't know if parents are going to say, yeah, I want to buy this product for this one specific use case. And they were so beholden to that and so focused on not getting their product out and doing market testing and finding the right people that they kind of launched the product, but they also went after all these different certifications and invested a lot of money in that when they should have been really making sure that they knew who their audience was. And while it might have solved one problem for them, there are other audiences that it could solve a lot more problems for.
Let me. I understand what you're saying. I 100% agree. But let me turn that for you a little bit. See
Yeah.
if this helps. Because I remember the biggest case that where this just was verified for me. I had 3 or 4 corporate, well, I'm calling them corporate displacements. So people leaving corporate America. The one with the least experience had 25 years. The one with the most, 35 years. These are super, super high performing people. Absolute. No problems with them. And I said, okay, one at a time, tell me, what value do you bring to the customer? First one took 5 minutes to tell me nothing. The second one took 4 minutes to tell me nothing. The third one took 6 minutes to tell me nothing. They did not even know the value that they brought to the customer. I said, fine, let's do it this way. What 3 problems do you solve? Tell it to me any way you want. Tell me, what 3 problems do you solve? Same scenario. None of them could tell me. So what I believe is that if you can help somebody understand what 3 problems they solve, they can engage in a conversation that allows their buyer to look at it from a problem solution perspective in general, not a problem solution perspective specifically.
Mm-hmm,
And if
mm-hmm.
you watch, you could do this anywhere, but if you watch, like as I say, a lot of the, as an example, the Shark Tank.
Yeah.
A lot of times they get tripped up because they don't understand the value that they bring. And the sharks really do understand that. They have great products, but if they can't convey that, the shark knows, why am I going to spend my time with you if you can't convey the value? So that's one of the big misses I find in the market. And I think it's going to become more important because there's no question we're going into a recession. I mean, at this point in the conversation, there's no question. There's no question. I mean, look at the hiring numbers they just published today. The hiring numbers are abysmal. People have to be clearer because there's more data coming at people. People are questioning the data that's coming at them, especially now because of AI. People need clarity in the message. And if they can't resonate with you, if they can't go to you, hey, I trust this person because he solves a problem that I think resonates with me, they're obligated to go find a different solution provider. It doesn't matter how good your solution is. It just doesn't matter if that's not what the person's trying to solve. So I'll give you one quick story on this. I was selling to what were they? They were a wealth management company. They've now, I'm not going to name names, but they were acquired by a very, very big wealth management company. And I had systems in there. I got a call from one of the admins. I'm in the car because I was covering large territory. And she said, Mr. So-and-so, I don't know who it was, but he's some senior vice president. He says, I'd never met him. He says, Mr. So-and-so wants to see you. I said, fine, take out your calendar, let me know when he wants to see me. She goes, now, look, the way I treat my customers, I jump when they call, all right, within reason. I said, now is kind of interesting because I'm 2.5 hours away. So we'll get down here as soon as you can. I said, fine, I'll turn my car around. I'll cancel my appointment. I'll come see you. That's what I do for people. Turn my car around, drove 2.5 hours to see him. Go in the room, and he's got minions all throughout the room, like 15, 20 minions. And he's Mr. Big. He's got a gorilla breath on the table. Your system is, excuse me, is fire trucked up. It's not doing this. It's not doing that. But okay, fine, fine. One, explain the situation to me. Okay, he explained it to me. I'm not going to get into long technical detail because I understood exactly what was going on. I said, okay, let me ask you this. I said, how many calls is my system taking for you on a monthly basis? I don't know what it was, 150 something thousand calls.
Wow.
Because it was an interactive voice response at the time. I said, how many complaints like this did you get in the past month? Because I'm trying to figure out, do I have a 10% problem, a 1% problem, a 0.01% problem? He goes, 11. So you turned me around for 2.5 hours at the end of the day to come in here to talk about 11 problems out of 150,000 calls. He's still mad. I said, tell me the problem. Okay, blah, blah, blah. What is the core problem? Well, we don't know. They're upset with us. We don't know why. Okay, fine. Let me ask you this. Do you ever survey your customers? You're making changes to the system. Do you ever survey your customers? He goes, yes, of course we do. I said, when? He goes, once a year. Well, I said, let me run a scenario past you. I said, alarm clock goes off at 6 o'clock. Your customer swings his feet out of the bed, plops his feet on the ground next to his bed, hears and feels the squish. Fido took a dump next to the bed because he wasn't walked at 5 o'clock. He now has to go into the bathroom, wipe this off. He gets in the shower, takes a shower, finds out that the toothpaste tube is empty. Gets in his car to drive to work. Traffic is horrific. Stops before he gets in, goes to the Dunkin' Donuts, gets a cup of coffee, gets in his car, has to stop short. The coffee goes all over his brand new white shirt. He walks into the office to find out that his admin has called in sick and his message is all over his phone. You call him up and say, we'd like to do a survey. You tell me what his response is going to be. And that's what you're basing your data on. I sold him a brand new survey package. It didn't exist. I created it in my head.
Yeah.
No, I'm saying we've got to understand the motivation of the customer. We have to understand, what is the buyer really trying to do? Why are they asking us what they're asking us? What problem are they really trying to solve? We don't. Let me tell you what a great company we are. Let me tell you the speeds and feeds. Let me tell you how much it costs.
Yep.
We take 45 minutes to do it. Mm-hmm. If you are familiar with a gentleman by the name of Oren Klaff, he's one of the brightest people I've ever seen on video. I've watched his videos, read his books. He contends, and I imagine there's a certain amount of truth to this, he contends that in a standard presentation, you lose the buyer whether you like it or not at 22 and a half minutes. Most people do not even get to their pitch until minute 30.
Yeah.
Where's the disconnect?
Yep. Yeah. 100%. We talk about this when I do branding classes. We talk about this in digital media and thinking about how we're sharing information all the time. You can't just talk about the features, right? You can't, maybe if you're a makeup and you have a specific claim, you want to talk about peptides and whatever, and, being organic and where you source, cruelty-free, things like that. But for most companies, that is not what you want to lead with.
No. I mean, I don't want to do this to you and your listeners. I could do this for the next 7 days straight, talk about this stuff, because this is what excites me so much.
Yeah, I can tell.
And
it was
you know what the worst part is? You know what the worst part of this is? You know who suffers from all of this?
Customer.
No.
No?
Nope. Nope, not at all. Customer moves on. Customer doesn't become a customer. The kids. Because now mommy and daddy come home frustrated. And because we're not in tune with our blind spots, what's the first thing they do? They yell at the kid. Where do you think the expression came from, kick the dog? That's where it all came from, is people being frustrated, not understanding why they're frustrated, not understanding how to deal with it, needing to take that emotion out on somebody or something. Poor kid doesn't know. And I could get into the whole thing of my whole mindset thing works around this whole premise of what we hear and learn at 4 and 5 years old. What do you think the kid thinks about the daddy's boss when the daddy comes home and starts cursing his boss?
Yeah. So
I'm sorry.
no, I feel like there's a part 2, 3, 4, 5 to our conversation. So let's end it right here.
Yes,
You've
ma'am.
given everybody a lot of things to think about. changing your attitude, right? Changing the way that you think about how you're serving your customers and what you're sharing. And this is there's so many more things. I know you have so many more tidbits. So we will have another conversation. This will
I
be
look
to be
forward to it.
continued.
I look forward to it.
But you are open to doing a call, exploratory call with anybody who's listening. If we put
Love to. I would
your
love
link in the show notes,
to.
amazing.
Yeah, just
And
surprised if I go over the time.
yeah, John, do you have a favorite quote, mantra, verse, poem, family motto?
I have so many. In fact, if anybody goes and reads my book,
Fantastic.
I love quotes. I filled it with quotes. I will tell you that one of my favorites is from Sun Tzu, from The Art of War. If anybody's familiar with that, Victoria warriors win first and then go to war, while defeated warriors go to war first and then will to win. And he said, well, the guy was, I don't know, what was that, 14th century or something? I don't know. How is that relevant today? It's so relevant today. So I'll give him one more.
Okay.
I'll give you one more. A fellow walks into his shrink's office, and he is absolutely livid. He's completely out of control. Shrink says, what's going on? What's the matter with you? He says, I can't stand her. I want a divorce. She is the worst thing that ever happened to me in my life. I hate the bitch. I want out. I want you to draft a divorce paper right now. He's going crazy. He says, I don't care what it costs. I don't care what I have to give away. I want to get rid of her. The guy goes, fine. He goes, come on, sit down for a minute. Let's talk about this. So he has him explain, get all of his anger out. He goes, okay, does she understand how you feel? He goes, I think so. We're fighting all the time. He goes, okay, so right now, if you divorce her, she's kind of expecting it, right? He goes, yeah. He goes, do you really hate her? He goes, oh, yeah. He goes, okay, I got a strategy for you. I said, you're not going to get maximum effect on this if she's expecting it. So for the next 30 days, treat her like a princess. Treat her like an angel. Do everything for her. And then at the end of 30 days, you come back, we'll draft the paperwork up, and we'll hit her right between the eyes, and she'll never expect it. Because that's a great plan. I love it. He goes home, comes back after 30 days, starts to talk to the guy. The guy says, well, you ready to draft up the papers? He goes, what papers? He goes, the divorce papers. Remember we talked about this 30 days ago? He goes, what are you kidding me? This is the greatest person I've ever met in my life. I love her to death. Why would I ever want to divorce her? Perspective, attitude, blind spot. Yeah. Cool.
Mic drop. Thank you so much, John. This has been so fun. Thank you to everybody who's watching this episode or listening to it. We're going to have a lot more fun conversations over the next few months. I'm going to bring John back on as a guest, and give us a rating review if you liked this episode as much as I did. And that's part of the fun for me as a host is I get to have fun and I get to learn a lot and have these conversations. So John, thank you for bringing that to our show. I will have all the ways to contact you in the show notes, as well as the link to your book. Again, we didn't even get there. So to be continued. Have a great rest of your day. Thank you. And thank you to everybody who's watching again or listening to this episode. I'll be back again with another amazing guest to share their story, their journey, and some tips and tricks to help make your world of work and your life a little bit brighter and better every day. Thanks for listening or watching to this episode of Your Brand Amplified. Don't forget to leave us a rating or review on your favorite podcast listening platform. And if you want to learn more, check us out at yourbrandamplified.com.